Hi, everyone. This is Trader Genius. I'm Jess. I'm joined here today with Jeff, one of the members of our trading community. We decided to make a short little podcast on discussing Jeff's process as a trader and kind of his perspective from where he came from and how things have shifted now that he's been doing this for a little while. I hope you enjoy. We're just going to jump right in. So, Jeff, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to Trader Genius?
So I've had relationship with some of the folks that are in Trader Genius for a while, and they had always told me about, we've got this new program we're using. Are you interested in the stock market? So I put it off and I said, hey, you know what? I think I'm in a place now where I need to start looking at something for down the line. I'm getting older. What I'm doing now hasn't worked. So I don't know if I had a why not try attitude. I think I had something like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I could get involved in this and be where I am now, or I could get involved in it and it could actually help me. So I took that kind of approach. I started doing the research before the training. I said, hey, you know what? There's something about this guy, Alan, that makes me think he knows his stuff. Just listening to his videos and how in depth he goes. And I said, man, I'm starting to kind of believe this guy. It still doesn't matter until you actually do it. And for me, the next step was to join and to do the training. And I did. And then that was back in April of last year.
Would you talk a little bit about the training itself and what your experience was?
So I think my initial thought was to go in with no expectations, right? And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to go in with expectations. I'm just going to do what I'm told. I'm not going to try to outsmart the software. I do software for a living. So I said, hey, you know what? These guys have spent a lot of time developing this product. I'm just going to follow what I'm told and take that approach and said, hey, if these guys are successful doing it, if I just listen to them, then I'll be fine. There were times within the process where I got frustrated, but I think frustration is what helps people grow. I think going through those pains of paper trading was one of my biggest pains. And I felt like I should not have to do this. This is ridiculous. I said, but if I don't go through that pain, then I don't come out on the other side. So I think that's kind of a trend for my trading style and for my path up to this point is follow the process. If you listen to what the trainers teach and you follow the instruction and you go through the repetition, things do get better and it does work.
I think you hit on something really great there, and that is putting in the repetitions and putting in the work. So it's one thing getting the knowledge, understanding Cornerstone, and going through the coaching. That's great, and that's a huge first step. But as you said, it's about putting in the work. Talk a little bit more about what you experienced in that process of your own.
I think initially when I got out of training, the first thing I wanted was just to sit down with Rob or you or Steven and say, you know what, if I could just spend the day with you guys, I would know how to trade perfectly and I would kill it, right? What I didn't realize was I was already prepared to do the right thing. I just needed to go through the motions. I needed to actually go through the process and have some days that made me cry and have some days that beat me up and go through those repetitions and go through that pain. I think I kind of look at it like this is that just like with people, you have to build trust and relationships help build trust. With the software, you're building a relationship, right? And in the beginning, you may not trust it, but over a period of time, you're going to begin to know what works for you and you're going to have a trust relationship with the program and it's going to work in your favor. But until you've gotten to that point where you establish trust, I'm not sitting down at the desk afraid to do something. I'm sitting down at the desk knowing that my process it works and I follow the process and I execute. So I think there's that trust, there's that relationship, there's that, but it takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of getting beat up, having some bad days to get through to understand how your process is going to work for you.
That's a great analogy you have there with the relationship idea. Much like if we're in a relationship of our own and we don't trust the other person that's sitting across from us. We don't express ourselves naturally. We don't express ourselves honestly. And by trusting the software and trusting the coaches, putting in the work, you've been able to express yourself as a trader. naturally you found something that seems to have really worked for you. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Taking the time to understand where, if I did a trade and it wasn't successful, going back and learning from it. And through that process, saying, okay, these are the things that work for me, my trading style, not deviating from that, understanding that, hey, if I have a really, really good day, learning from that experience and saying, okay, what worked and what didn't, evaluating my own performance, evaluating my own trust. There are days where I look at the market, I see the behavior, and I say, you know what, this is a no trade day for me. And I have to trust that it's a no trade day. I do have another voice inside me that'll say, no, you can sit down, you can try, but I have to trust what I know and say, hey, this is based on your trading style, this is not a good day to trade. Or based on your process, today is a day where there are moments where you can do well. And that's kind of where I'm at. But that took a long period of time for me, and a lot of days where I just said, hey, you know what? I messed up. I deviated. And every time I do, every time I go a little here or a little there, it lets me know. There is an eye-opening time where it says, hey, you know what? You did that thing again that you're not supposed to do. And I slap myself and I say, hey, look at what you did. Did it work? No. And I write down all these little things. Hey, this is what you did that caused this problem. This is what you did that caused that problem. So understanding how I can get better and learning from it. And you can learn from other people's mistakes based on how they tell you, but it's way different when you learn from your own mistakes. I think I could tell you how to do something, but until you've actually experienced it yourself firsthand, it's a much different impact.
Yeah, it's like teaching somebody about a hot stove. You can explain that to a kid or somebody who has never touched anything hot, what that feels like, but it's difficult because it's so ingrained, it's so visceral. And that's what we feel when we go outside of our process or when we have a bad day. That's on us. And you can't explain that. That's something that gets learned, and hopefully it just gets learned once. But some things take a little bit more time to get learned, but it's by doing and by putting in the work to build that trust in yourself. So you have these competing voices, but you can rely on the voice that's telling you to stick with your process. And that takes time to be able to do that. Talk a little bit more about your experience now as a trader versus when you were first starting out, how you perceive the market, about what your overall thoughts are about expectations of becoming a trader.
I think initially when I first got out of training, the market was pretty much flat. And I felt like I always had to be in the market trading. I felt like I had to be at the desk clicking on something. I've got to make something happen. And I think that was the wrong mindset. And I said, I'm paying for this every month. I've got to make something happen with this, or it's not going to work out for me. And that was the wrong mindset. So I think now I'm under the mindset that I'm going to protect my investment, and I'm going to take opportunities based on what the market dictates and what the software shows me. Whereas before, I would sit and look at the screen and manufacture trade. I would do that a lot. I think that was one of my initial problems. And another one of my challenges was trading on a day that I should not be. Didn't realize that, hey, every day is flat right now. I should not be trading at all. And then when the days come that are going to be good, I can maximize those days. That'll take care of the rest. And now I know that, hey, there's going to be days where I just sit there and I shut it down. And accepting that. I think one of the hardest things for me to accept was there's going to be days where you don't do anything. And I think we're stuck in that we have to do something. I think that was one of the things that if I could tell the just out of training me, there are days where you should not trade, and you should be okay with that. A no trade day is a successful day if you did the right thing. But you also don't want to sit down at the desk and be afraid to trade. And I think that was another thing too, is that when there were moments that were kind of crazy, like what we're dealing with now, there are tradable days, but you also don't want to sit there and be afraid. You have a process to follow. And if If fear is dictating whether you trade or not, then you're probably not in the right place to trade.
Yeah, if you're trading under fear, then your process isn't developed enough yet, or you're just not trusting your process if there's fear involved with it. I think that's really important, and it's okay to have a no trade day, just like you said, but it really comes down to process. It's a no trade day because it doesn't fit your process, or it's a trade day because it fits your process. So if you were to kind of leave folks with a few bits of information, what would you say were kind of the big high level items that have allowed you to get where you are today?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is trust that the software works. The developers of the software have done a great job. We have a product that works, but it doesn't work for you if you don't trust it. So I think number one is trust. I think everybody talks about this in training, but I don't know if everyone gets it until it hurts, is having the right mindset. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and it may not be a good time for you to trade. And you may have all kinds of outside distractions preventing you from being focused on your process. And there's days where I sit down and I say, you know what? I've got too much going on in my life to be in the market and risking my investment. So trust, mindset, and then executing your process. Don't deviate from what works. Stick with your process. So those will probably be those three things. Your process doesn't work until you've actually done the reps, right? You're not going to be a consistent shooter if you don't practice, right? The training has gotten you to a point where you've done plenty of repetitions, but you haven't done enough repetitions in the live market to have your process honed in. And it does take time. Am I perfect? No. I'm in the process. Am I the best trader? No. I make mistakes still, but it's about learning from those mistakes and sticking with the process.
Awesome, man. Well, definitely great to talk to you. Thanks for sharing. We really love having you a part of the community, and it's awesome to hear what you've been up to and how far you've come. I'm lucky enough to be a part of your process and be a part of your growth. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And I thank you for your leadership through all of this. I mean, I couldn't have done it without you. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we got each other, brother.
All right. Thanks.